All right, now I'm going to open up Bluebeam, which is the, if you guys aren't aware, is the little software right down here in the middle on the bottom. That is the software we use to look at drawings most frequently, and where most people will go to access any of the job documents. First thing I want to look at is right up here, we've got this file cabinet looking symbol. That symbol is going to be where we go to open up virtually all of our drawings. If I tap that, it'll open up, it'll automatically go to the last folder you were looking at. I'm going to go back into my shared folders, and we're going to talk a little bit about what's on this screen right here. First thing I'll point out is up here at the very top, there's kind of like another antenna symbol with some green lines coming off of it. That is a symbol showing that your Bluebeam file cabinet is looking at what's in the cloud right now. You can only ever get that. You can only ever get that if you are actively connected to the internet. So if you're on Wi-Fi or on your wireless data, you'll notice, for example, if I go into one of these other jobs, there's a whole bunch of files here that have a little cloud symbol next to them. And when I turn off this wireless guy, everything disappears and it says no files. That's because I don't have those files downloaded on my iPad right now, so I can only access them by looking at what's in the cloud. I turn it back on, everything comes back up because I'm looking at what's in the cloud, but I haven't downloaded any of them. If you guys look at what's on your iPads, you'll notice it should already have all of the, it should already be set up for the jobs that you're currently on. And it should have a few files already synced. It'll have the drawings, progress set drawings, coordination drawings, and your field folder for your job. But you still have access to everything else for your job if you have that little green symbol turned on. I'm going to go into my job, into 1900N. We go into the job folder. It's always going to have a documents folder after that. Go into documents, and then we see all of the folders for the entire job. If you guys don't see all of them on your iPads right now, it's probably because you don't have the little green guy up here lit up. If you tap that, it should show up with the rest of them. Like I said, the only thing you guys will have automatically set up to sync is the folders and the files that we thought probably everyone who has an iPad, regardless of what you're working on specifically, will want to have access to. And again, that's the progress set drawings for the job, which I'll get into and we'll talk about more in a little bit, the coordination drawings, and the field folder. I will talk about in a few minutes how we can select other files and other folders to sync, and how you would find which ones you might want to sync, because these are the ones, like I said, that everyone will probably want to have access to all the time. But for example, if you are a crew leader in charge of lighting, you probably want to have the lighting submittal synced. If you're in charge of gear and panel boards, you probably want to have the gear submittal synced. We'll get into and start looking at some other stuff. Fire alarm, you probably want to have some fire alarm submittals synced. And we'll look into how to find those and how to set it up to sync. But if you're not, the fire alarm guy is probably not going to want the lighting submittal synced, and the lighting guy is probably not going to want the gear submittal synced. So we didn't set it up to sync all of those for everybody, but you'll find out how today when we get into that point. So you'll notice we got a lot of folders here, and most jobs are going to be set up pretty similarly. Might be some minor variations, but for the most part, they should all have the same file structure. Some of these are ones that as crew leaders and journeymen in the field, you're probably almost never going to have to look at. One example would be this first one here, the Agile folder, which every job has. That's where we store stuff like the ongoing work breakdown structure a foreman will make. Something like that will go in there. Not something that you guys as crew leaders are really probably going to have to look at a lot. Another one like manpower, long-term manpower plans. Probably you guys don't really need to look at a whole lot, but I want to point these out and show them to you because there are something that you'll see probably in every single job folder. A lot of this is stuff that the foreman or the office will use more often, but it's something that's there. First one I'm going to go into and take a look at is drawings. When I first opened my drawings folder, you'll see I got a whole bunch of other folders here. You guys probably have several other folders in yours, maybe not the exact same ones I have, but two that you definitely will have are progress set and coordination drawings. Progress set, I'm going to go into first. This will be where you find the latest and greatest drawings for your job. It's intended to be the most updated drawings that we're building off of. So whenever a job releases a new bulletin or an update or change order or something, the office and the project managers are in charge of making sure that those drawings get into this folder and this progress set gets updated. Whenever, at any time, unless your foreman directs you otherwise, you should always be going into the progress set to be finding your most updated drawings. Now within here, within the progress set, it might be structured a little bit differently depending on the jobs. I'm looking at right now 1900 N Street, which is a fairly big job. So we've got it broken down by different, different categories, the architectural drawings, the civil drawings, electrical drawings, so on and so forth. If I open it up, I'm looking at electrical now, it's got the list of all of the electrical drawings for the entire job. And again, each one of these drawings should be the most updated, latest and greatest version of that drawing based on whatever the latest change order or bulletin or whatever has come out, it'll be in here. Something you'll notice at the bottom. So I've got each individual page broken out here. You can see the page numbers, E0201, 0202, going on, so on and so forth. But if I go all the way down to the bottom, I'll have electrical full set. That document, and you can, if you notice, like most of these other ones, 305 kilobytes, 320, in the 300 kilobyte range. This one is 23 megabytes, which is a lot bigger than the other folders. The reason is because this full set is every single electrical drawing. It's all of these ones that are above it, just in one document. Most often, I find it's more convenient and it works better on the iPad to open up the individual drawings. It makes it easier to cycle between drawings if you've got two of them open. For example, I'll open two of them real quick at random. And you can see where I've got the different tabs up here. I can swipe between the drawings pretty easily. The full set will have all the drawings all on the same document, which makes it really easy if you're using a laptop or you're here in the office on a computer to open up and jump through them. But on the iPad, the full set will sometimes take longer to load. It might be, just because it's a larger file, it taxes the hardware on the iPad a little bit more. So I find it's easier to use the individual drawings on the iPad, but really that's it's something you can play around with and look at. One thing I will point out is if I open up the full set, I grab my handle here on the left and drag it over. This little symbol up here at the top that kind of looks like a ribbon is a bookmarks. If I open that, you'll see each page is bookmarked within the electrical set. Most full sets, and this is something that the office tends to manage, most full sets will have all the pages bookmarked. So if I do want to open up the full set, you can see up here it says it's 58 pages. I don't have to swipe through 58 pages to find the one I want. If I know the drawing name and number, I can go just tap on whichever one I want and it'll take me straight to that page, which is something that's convenient about the full set. But again, the full set's larger, might take a little bit longer to load, especially if I'm swiping through a lot of pages, zooming in, zooming out, jumping between drawings. It starts to tax the iPad a lot more than if you just have a single drawing opened up. So does anybody have any questions on the progress set or how that's structured or where to find drawings within there? All right, the next one I'm gonna get into, I'm going back to my drawings folder, which is the other one all of you guys should have already synced on your iPad, is the coordination drawings folder. Now the coordination drawings is where Andrew McGorham will put any drawings that he makes, anything that he's working on goes in that folder. Some of the stuff within it, like his posted folder, his Revit folder, stuff like that, you guys don't really need to worry about. That's a lot of files that he deals with when he's making the 3D models and that kind of stuff. But there are some stuff in here that would be pretty useful for you guys to be able to know about. One of the folders that he has in here is called Shop Drawings. If he has to make any drawings based off of the model for the field, for example, out at 1900N, we were doing a lot of deck rough-in for concrete decks. Every time he made a file based on the model, he'd save it in the Shop Drawings folder. And that's where we would go to be able to find that. This one's gonna vary a lot more. You won't necessarily have a drawing of everything on the job. It's just gonna be what you guys have decided and asked Andrew to make up for you, but that's usually where he saves it. Another folder that's within here that's useful to know about is his prefab folder. A lot of times, like if you're doing long conduit runs that have been modeled and are being built up in here in the warehouse to be installed, this is where he'll put the drawings for that. There'll usually be a part map and then the individual parts for it that all get modeled up and are built based off of these drawings by the warehouse. Sometimes you guys will probably, especially the part map, want to refer to them in the field if you're installing them, but you also might want to look at the individual parts if there's something fishy about it, or you got a question on what was built or anything like that.
And what folder is that called?
That's in the prefab within the coordinations drawings.
Yeah.
Again, some of the other ones that I'm not going to go too much in detail, but might be useful. There's a Trimble folder. So if you guys happen to be using the Trimble on your job site to do layout, that's where all the Trimble files get stored. There's a folder called Navis, which if you guys are looking at the 3D, if you have a 3D model for your job, that's where the 3D model files are always stored. We can open up and look at the 3D model on the iPad. If we've got time at the end after all this, I'll take a look and we'll look into that. I find it's very difficult to not navigate through the 3D model on the iPad. It's just, there's a lot to look at and it kind of gets overwhelming, and it can be, it's a steep learning curve to learn how to navigate through it easily, but it's something that we have access to and you can pull up on your iPad. It's a little bit easier to look at and navigate through on a computer, but we do have the option. Now I'll get into that at the very end if we have time for it, but that's not going to be one of my focuses. Anybody have any other questions? The other thing about the drawing folder, one that you guys don't have automatically synced, but the other folder that's in here that might be useful for you is this one, addendums and bulletins. Now, whenever we get a new set of drawings out for the job, when we start a job, we usually get the first set of contract drawings, usually 100% construction, maybe 95% construction. But as the job goes on, as everybody knows, we get addendums, bulletins, updates, changes, new versions of drawings, that kind of stuff. This addendums and bulletins folder will have every version of the drawings going back to the beginning of the job stored in there. So we know the progress set is the latest and greatest, most updated versions of the drawings. But say for whatever reason you need to refer back to what the previous version was. I don't know, maybe the wall roughing changed for an area and you need to go back and change what we have installed, but you want to look at what was there before to try to get an idea of what's moving around and how they changed it. You can always go back, find the earlier versions of the drawings in addendums and bulletins. If I open it up, you'll see it's got all kinds of older ones, a bunch of different drawing sets, bulletin versions. It might be a good idea if you think you got to go in there and you're not terribly familiar with which versions of them, to touch base with your foreman, to ask them, hey, I wanted to look at what the last version of this lighting print was because it looked like they changed. Do you know what the last bulletin was, or the whatever it is, to be able to reference? But just know that you do have access, even though the progress set is the newest versions, you do have access to all of the older versions also. You shouldn't be going to these to build off of unless you've been specifically directed by your foreman, but know that you've got them to look at. Sometimes it's pretty useful to be able to look at what's changed so that you know what you need to do out in the field. Anybody have any questions on the drawings folder or anything within there?
The question I have, do you, documents in the progress set, is there any way to have them sync by themselves on a certain?
No. We'll get into syncing in a little bit, but pretty much on the iPad,
You have to do it.
you have to physically go in and tell it to sync, yes.
Okay. I didn't know if there's a way you set up to do it
No,
every morning.
no, unfortunately, it's entirely manual. You have to tell it to do it.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions on the drawings folder? Okay. The other folder, the next folder we've got to look at is the field folder. This is another one that, the last one that you guys will all automatically have synced on your iPads right now. If we open up the field folder, this one is probably going to be the folder that's the most different from job to job. This folder is basically for us in the field to use however we want. You can put whatever drawings we want in there, if we're, stuff that we're building off of, some markups that we're using, drawings that we're making plans on, maybe if we're maintaining a set of as-built as we're going, sometimes that'll be saved in here. Just whatever we have. You can see I've got my material orders I save in here, JSAs, which is my job's version of an AHA or a safety reviews, all that kind of stuff. Anything that people in the field want to use and edit frequently should be going into this folder. This folder is also the one that the people in the office go into the least, because again, this is the field folder. This is the folder that we can do what we want to in. A lot of the times, each foreman will probably structure their field folder a little bit differently. I know the way that one of the ways I like to do mine, I know some of the other foremen do it also, is They'll have folders for specific crew leaders. So you can see I've got one for Jeremy, I got one here for Rashid, I got one for Tom Sickles. And then I'll put whatever drawings into there or whatever that they ask for, they need that they're working on. And I'll show you in a couple minutes how you guys can also put full files into these folders for yourselves. So you can move stuff, say you're working on, you're making some lighting, you're working on lighting and you want to keep a version of the lighting drawing in your folder for you to update and mark what's been installed, what problems you've got, that kind of thing. I'll show you how to save a copy of the progress set drawing into your field folder so that you can copy it over. One other thing you'll notice as we go through, and I'll talk about when we get into syncing a little bit more, is that the field folder is the only folder that you guys have access to actually be able to edit anything in. We can pull up the drawings and look at the drawings in the progress set all we want, but we're not going to be able to save changes that we make to the drawings in the progress set and sync them back to the cloud. This is intentionally done so that we want to keep the progress set to be a clean, updated, most updated version of the contract drawings we've got. If people go in and start marking them up and start saying, oh, I installed this light, this receptacle needs to move, the cable was cut here, we need to install a junction here, that kind of stuff, it's going to start to get really cluttered, start to have a lot of information that maybe not everyone needs to know. And then if someone else goes in to open up that same drawing, it's going to be difficult for them to find what they want to on there. So in an effort to try to keep the progress set a clean, fresh set of drawings, access has been restricted so that we can view them. And as a foreman, this is the same for me as it is for you guys as crew leaders and journeymen. We don't have access to actually change any of the files in there or alter them. If we want to do markups on drawings, like I'll show you in a minute, we want to copy them over into the field folder and then start marking them up and do changes on there. So going back into my documents, there's two other folders, or I guess three other folders I wanted to show you guys about that you don't have automatically synced, but this is probably where you might find some drawings that you'll want to set up to sync for yourself. First one I'm going to look at is equipment and systems. This is where we save any kind of information about any sort of equipment or systems that are on the job that's not a submittal or a contract drawing. So for example, within fixtures, a lot of times there'll be light fixture counts, light fixture schedules, stuff like that in here. You can see I've got counts by floor, exit light counts, some cut sheets. If we have to take pictures of fixtures, say we get some damaged fixtures on the job site, we need to send a picture back to the manufacturer for them to give us new pieces. We can save pictures in here, that kind of stuff. Fire alarm will usually have the county approved fire alarm drawings will frequently be in here. If we're installing generators or gear or UPSs, anything like that, a lot of the information about that will be in here. Everything except for the submittal itself, which we'll get to after this folder. One thing that is in here, one file that's in here that is very useful, that we use a lot, is this one you can see called Job Fixture Gear Fire Alarm Master Inventory. This is a spreadsheet that I'm going to open up in a second to show you that is created and maintained mostly by the warehouse and the office that lists all the kind of material and that we've got on the job, other than the kind of stock stuff that we use all the time. It won't have your conduit or cable or connectors or receptacles, but anything we buy specifically for the job, fixtures, gear, if we get floor boxes that are going in, fire alarm equipment, all that kind of stuff. We actually track what we've purchased, how many we've purchased, where it is, all that kind of stuff in here. So as a crew leader, it might be really useful for you to be able to go in here and look, hey, are those fixtures I'm waiting for, are they still up at the warehouse? Have they arrived at the warehouse? Did the warehouse ship them out to the job site? Or, is the fire alarm devices I need? Do you know where those are? All that kind of stuff. If I open it up, I tap on it, the first thing you'll notice is a window pops up. Basically, this is Bluebeam telling me, hey, I don't know how to open this file because it's not a PDF file. How do you want me to open it? This being if you look at the suffix at the end, .xlsx, means it's a spreadsheet file, which means the software that we want to open it to is Excel. You won't get listed there different apps unless that app can actually open that file type. So it's not going to pop up with an Excel if it's not a spreadsheet that Excel can open up. Now if we take a look here, This is down here at the bottom, there are some tabs that list different, what is on each spreadsheet. This one's fixtures, I got the one for gear, fire alarm, and then miscellaneous stuff. You can see on here for the fixture, it gives me my fixture type, what the catalog number is, and you can see there's 3 different types, which means, this one's the actual light. This is gonna be a wire guard that goes around it. This is mounting brackets. So you kind of want to look at the type and the catalog number. Gives us the vendor of who it's coming from, the quantity of what we've ordered, how many we've actually received in the warehouse, how many have been back ordered. So you can see we've gotten about 300 of them in, but we still have another 200 something that are back ordered to be delivered. And they'll tell me how many we've actually shipped to the job and how many are still available in the warehouse. And then it even goes into the location in the warehouse where they're stored, which if you ever go back there and take a look, there'll be the shelves that have different codes on them, which are these codes here, which is how the warehouse stores stuff and knows where they have things stored. This is really useful because I can say, these type FKB lights, I know I've got 74 of them up here in the warehouse. If I need to install 85 of them on the job site, I know we don't have enough of them up at the warehouse for me to install, and I need to talk to my project manager about what's going on with them. If I only need to install 50 of them, I know, well, we've got 74. I'm not going to tell the warehouse, send all of them that you've got out there. So it becomes very useful, especially as a foreman. I look at this a lot. But even as crew leaders, you guys can be referring back to this to look at what we've got up here and what material you've got available to order. Just like with the fire alarm, we also have gear. Right now, mine's pretty empty because we don't have a lot of the gear ordered yet. We're just about to release it yet, but you'll see I only have a couple of things. Fire alarm, all the different fire alarm equipment that we've got. You can see it's same thing, quantity order, how much we've received, what's been shipped to the job, what we've got available, and then miscellaneous. So for example, under my miscellaneous, we've got some fire rated sleeves we were installing in concrete. We've got some floor boxes we installed. Stuff like that that's specific to your job that we wouldn't order just generic. If it's something like receptacles or switches or pipe, we don't really track that because that's something we just order from the supply house. But anything that would be bought by the project manager or the warehouse specifically for the job gets tracked through here. Okay, going back into Bluebeam. Anybody have any questions on field folder, equipment and systems, any of the stuff we've gone over so far?